All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you, and especially nice to see so many familiar faces. It's really great. Um, I'm Christoph. Uh, I'm one of the co-founders of Phonics Internet. I do a lot of. I'm just going to look down. I do a lot of R&D in our company, and I enjoy that a lot. You find me on social media and in Drupal as Brighter. That's me. And yeah, I've been doing this for quite some time. And yeah, work for Phonics Internet. Just really briefly, who we are. So we are a digital full service agency, and we cover everything from digital strategy consulting to user experience design, implementation, and then operation of the website and hosting. And we've been doing this for quite some time. We were founded in 2013 in Frankfurt. That's also where I'm from. And but we have offices. One office in Berlin. We have one in southern Spain in Conil and in Reykjavik as well. And you see here the dark spots on the European map. That's where we also have people. But like really, we are from everywhere, and we speak all languages. And our corporate language is broken English. We've been doing Drupal and React. These are our weapons of choice, and we've been doing these for a long time. And we have worked for like very many clients. Here's like a few selections. And yeah, but today's topic is going to be AI with Drupal. And the subline is, like using, large language models is pretty easy, but like, I mean, like, how do you apply this now? How do you build useful stuff for your clients, for your projects, for your organizations? And that's the topic I want to cover with you today. And the goal that I've set for myself, or that I have together with you, is to, we should all have common understanding how this actually works. I know there's some experts here in the room. Maybe there's also some people in the room that haven't played with AI so much. So we should all be like on the same level of understanding. And you should all like walk out here and know exactly what can you just do right now out of the box, what's possible and what's not possible. And you will understand if you start building your own applications, like how do you actually do that? Yeah. And hopefully, so I will show lots of demos and tell lots of like experiences that we are having and what we are looking at the moment. And hopefully you get some inspirations for yourself, for your organizations, for your clients to just build your own. All right, I've structured like the talk like this. We have 4 points. So we'll start with, doing an AI overview. This is not very technical. It's just to really make sure when we talk here together that we are talking about the same thing. Then we'll go into some demos, and and then you will quickly see like, okay, what's possible out of the box, and when do you need to start like extending. And that's when we dive into like dynamic applications, how you build those. And then in the end, I'll wrap it up like to build useful applications. How do you get these ideas? How do you approach this? The barcode on the right side takes you to a landing page from Phonics Internet for this event here. So there's all the presentations and stuff. That's also where we're going to publish slides and stuff like this. All right, let's get started with large language models, or the first part of the presentation. So when we talk about AI, like today, we're actually referring to, or in this presentation, we're referring to large language models, meaning text generation. Yeah. So large language models generate text. That's why they're also referred to as generative AI. And what these softwares actually are, they predict output text. Yeah, you see this here on the picture. So you stick in a chunk of text. Large language model does something and comes back to you with text that has like a very high probability of making sense. Yeah, so it's really just a statistical application that just generates text that makes sense. Yeah, and because these applications are getting so powerful, it feels like a natural conversation, and it feels like you're talking to an intelligent machine. But you have to think of it as just a text generator. It's generative AI. It's a large language model. It's very large, and it generates text. Yeah. So text in, large language model, text out. That's all there is to it. So, and now when we just talk about these large language models, how can you think about it? So we're not going deep here, but so what happens under the hood is like you take like a very, very large set of data. And of course, if you take full Wikipedia and everything else that you can think of on the internet and you train, there's like all kinds of intrinsic relationships between these words in there. For example, grammar, or like language, or like, general world knowledge of facts, like stuff like, typical sentence completions. And when a large language model is trained, like all these intrinsic hidden relationships between words or pieces of text in there, they aren't covered, and this is illustrated here. So you see like all these documents with like hidden relationships or elements with hidden relationships in them, and then by training they are uncovered. And that's what makes a large language model. And these large language models, they're called large because they use very, very large data sets for doing so. Yeah. And that brings to the first conceptual question that I just want to like share with you. Like, should you train your own model? No, you can't. Like, I mean, this costs like, firstly, it's like you need a huge amount of data. Like compiling this data just takes like a lot of time. Like training the model takes a lot of energy. It's very expensive. Yeah, and therefore it's like it's a game of big money. Yeah, so it's like not something that you can do. Right. So first thing that I want everyone here to take away, if you didn't know that already, like you use large language models that are built and you build your application on top of that, you will most likely never get to build your own. I mean, there are some cases, like if you're like in some niche applications, you can do that and it could make sense. But generally speaking, this is probably not something you want to do. All right, so now we know a large language model generates text. And we already know it makes grammatically correct sentences with a high probability of making sense. That's just what that does. Yeah. And important to understand is the generated text is based on the training data. Makes sense, right? Like, I mean, there's lots of data. You train a model and you stick something in, it can only output what was in the training corpus, right? So therefore, like good way of thinking about this is saying a large language model is a software that can talk, but it's also software that only can talk about what it knows. Yeah, keep that in mind. If it's not in the model, like obviously can't talk about it. Okay, so therefore, when you build custom applications, you usually pass additional information along like with your prompt. And this is called in-context learning or pre-prompting or priming. There's like tons of names for this, and it all works in the same way. So like here you see the prompt, that's the question that's being asked to the model. But firstly, you pass instructions along telling the model how you want to answer. And secondly, you pass that data along to the model that the model doesn't know. That's all there's to it. If you now think of the graphic again, is text in, text out, which is like a text consisting of 3 parts of text. They're joined together, actually in 3 messages being sent to the large language model, and it just generates a response based on this. Yeah, so we have instructions and we have data that's passed along with the question. That's how you build your applications. Let's take a look. So for the fun of it, I just created like an assistant that could like recommend sessions. So what I did, I went to the website, of this conference, and I just like took all the session information, like just copy pasted this all, and then just converted this to Markdown syntax and put this in as the data. And then I passed some instructions. You actually see the instructions here below. Yeah. And now it can answer questions. It can answer questions like when is the first session? It can answer questions about like when is my session, the one that we're currently in. And I just for illustration purposes, it can also, I mean, the first 2 you saw, like tell me about the session from the first day, first session. That's easy to find. It's in the beginning of the data. Yeah, second one was a bit harder to find. It was the session that we're now in. Now was a listing question. Say like list all questions all sessions that sound like that they have something to do with AI. So in this case, the large language model is taking the full data that's going in, analyzing it all, and then predicting like all the sessions that have something to do with AI. As you know, all the sessions that are classified. Yeah, so in the markup that I created, I just made sure it says like, session track and, whatever track that was. So it can correctly like list all the tracks here. And then for the fun of it, I then asked like, based on this classification, now show me all the sessions that are on the Starshot track. It also works nicely. Sometimes here, what you see in the background is OpenAI. I actually already sped up the video, so it's a little bit faster than it usually is, so it can actually answer quite slow. Come on, answer, yep. So now here, for example, is the list of the Drupal Starshot sessions. And there's one where then also here for this demo, ask the detailed question. So then asked about the Drupal AI module and Starshot. So much of the stuff that you see here is based on the contrib space of Drupal AI. So there's also, I think there's a BOF about it. if I remember correctly, but he will tell us in a second. Yeah, so there will be a buff that Jamie is holding. So I think now only say, yeah, Dries node, we already had that one. Okay, anyways, you get the point. I will just like, I will continue. So I think I only say thank you. Oh, wait, he's polite. Let's see what he does when I say thank you. Yeah. And maybe what I should also say, like, so what you're seeing here in this conversation, like he's passing all the messages along. It's just like when you and I, when we talk, you know, you say something, I say something, you say something, I say something, you say something, and I answer something based on what you just said, but also what you said before. Same logic, yeah. So like for a large language model, like all these messages that are being passed back and forth, they're all passed along, yeah. It's important because we want to look at the configuration. So firstly, the instructions that are just sent along, like for this chat application, is like your friendly assistant, and that recommends sessions. That's what you should do. And he will be passed the session information in a user message formatted in Markdown. And then answer based on this data and nothing else. Don't make anything up, don't invent anything. And answer short and precise. And if you can't answer, like actually I forgot to put like a question that he couldn't answer, but because then you would have said something along those lines of pointing to the session program if we were to find this information. Yeah, and then, you know, format the responses in Markdown, because like this chat window that you saw with the autocomplete, that takes Markdown syntax and reformats this then again to HTML to make it look nice. Yeah. And the data, I told you already, it's just regular. I just copy pasted from the website and, you know, formatted this like manually, like with copy paste, a little bit smarter, like to Markdown. And so that's like, here's a little excerpt of the session here. So that's what this looks like, just all the sessions. All right. So in the backend, like what did you see here at work? So firstly, like the model I used was the GPT 4.0 mini, because I don't need a big model, because I don't want him to talk about anything else except what I'm passing to him. So mini model is just super fine, yeah. Plus, it's also much cheaper to use than when you use like a big, powerful module that can do like complex tasks, yeah. And so that's one. You see here just regular standard default settings like max tokens, like the size of the response. Then you see here the static text. That was exactly the example that you just saw. It's just passed as one big chunk of text, like the full session program. Then you see here, wait, can I go back like this? Yeah. You see below there, like, you know, we have like some settings for an initial message. You know, you don't want that generate, you want that to be the same. And then you see here below, you see the system message. These are the instructions. Yeah, you saw that also earlier. And here, that's where it gets interesting. So we say for conversation, we restrict the number of messages we want to send along. Yeah, just like when you and I, when we talk, like, I mean, what you said yesterday, I for sure don't remember. What you said 10 minutes ago, probably also not, yeah. And like, you know, and also like the more data you send in, you know, the more time it takes to process. Makes sense, right? Like, I mean, huge chunk of data to LLM to generate the response takes more effort than small data in to generate a response. Yeah, so therefore here we introduced like some settings to reduce the number of messages that are being sent back and forth. You also see a button there on top that says remove assistant messages. So you could also configure like a conversation to just not include the previous answers to save some token time. Yeah. And what you see here, the conversation max tokens is set to 24,000. That's a lot. Like a token on average is something between 3 to 4 characters. So like we send huge amount of text. And like what this means in numbers. So if you use GPT-4 or Mini, yeah, you pay for 1 million input tokens, 15 cents, and like 60 cents for 1 million output tokens. And meaning if you calculate this through, so a conversation based on, and the data input, like all the session data, like everything stripped down, like bare minimum markdown, yeah, is still 21,000 tokens. Yeah. So meaning like a conversation of like 10 messages costs 4 cents. Yeah, 100 messages then costs $4 and 1,000 messages $40. Imagine turning this on for this conference where there's 1,000 people that do this 3 times per day for 3 days in a row. Like, it's just really expensive. Yeah, so therefore, you want to make this dynamic. And what is it that you want to make dynamic? You want to make the data input dynamic, because like if I want to ask like when's the Dries node, I don't need to send the full program to just like get information about the Dries node. I only need to send that piece of information that contains the Dries node. or whatever else is what I'm doing. And this process is actually called Retrieval Augmented Generation, because we augment the generation by retrieving the relevant data first. And this is referred to as RAG. So RAG sounds super fancy. There's like tons of talks everywhere. Everybody talks about RAG. This is as simple as just there's some kind of querying going on. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be search query, like meaning lexical search, keyword search with this. It could be semantic search, or it could be just regular database queries. For example, for use cases where you just like, as contextual data, you want to pass like maybe previous orders along in a shopping scenario or so, like then this would be a database queries. It doesn't matter. It just means like fetch the data in real time and augment your generation process with this data. All right, let's look at how this looks in practice. So we have one is internet. We are like quite a few people, and like we also have a nice intranet where we write everything down that what we do. And of course, it would just not be possible to stick the whole intranet into the large language model for answer simple questions. So here, like, did like a standard question. So like if somebody asked for vacation, like how does that work? So here was just like the answer for that question based on this particular page, which is linked here. You see the link to vacation holiday. That's the corresponding intranet page. Yeah. And then I asked like some more questions, staying in this domain. Okay, so when you go to the conference like this here, like how is this actually done? Like, what do you have to pay? What can you do? What can you not do? What are the expenses policies? Like we have these kind of things because we need to organize this. Yeah, you can also ask about like more about expenses. And then, just for illustration purpose, I then ask some different questions. Yeah, so typical thing is like your IDE doesn't have a license anymore. Like who do you ask? So in this case, we don't have a dedicated page for this, but it says like some stuff related to IDEs, like on various pages, So, and you should probably talk to the manager. This somehow hidden in there. So it's a pretty good answer given that we just don't have this. So in our intranet, we also have like some coding examples, like some stuff like how we like to do things. So here, like, just something simple as like enabling theme debug and DDEF, like how do you do that? With the links to the corresponding pages. You see here the link site is not formatted nicely. So like the generation of text can be configured a bit better to just like make this work. Also common use case we have, like, we host like a bunch of projects or like in charge of a bunch of projects. So you want to know like where is that hosted now? So that was this example here. So now for like to give some more examples. So we are pretty big on like being sensible with meetings, meetings like eat your time away like crazy. And so we try to like make this in a good way, and we distinguish between internal and external meetings, and we have guidelines around this. And I think I put one more question here. Yeah, so of course we also do sprints. We don't do like Scrum or anything like this. It's a modified version. This works really, really well for us, But like if you want to know like how that's organized, so that you'd also find that here in the intranet and you would answer correctly. Can we just give a second? Yeah, and everything you see here is just based on content from the intranet. Just give me a second, one more second. Yeah, so we have two pages. Like actually also nice to see here. So like he combined information that was, because we have a how-to page like on how we do agile, and we also have a page like how we do meetings. So these two together were actually used for generating this answer. Everything we use in our intranet, we use the good old books module that has been Drupal core since ever, and I think now this actually got removed. So like we just have handbooks, so like here listing page could also be done, and then I'm just only saying thank you. All right, let's continue. So what did we just see? So you see here, we're using Search API. There's also keyword search in our intranet, but we have added another search server. We use Milvus AI, which is an open source vector database, which we just have installed. And there we just like created an index for saving vectors. So briefly, so semantic search works like this, that you just take a piece of text, you run it through a large language model, and you get so-called embeddings back. You can do this like with ChatGPT. You can, with any of these models. And like these vectors, what you get is just a sequence of numbers, Yeah, and the sequence of number you can think about of being like a vector in a multidimensional space. Yeah, like like this, and like thousands of numbers, then it would be a multidimensional, and it's mathematically really easy to find like the angle between two vectors, like it's called cosine similarity, for example, to find like vectors that are similar, and that allows you actually to find, like, because it's based on words, yeah, it allows you to find similar content. So you don't need anymore, like, I mean, you know this for keyword search. If it doesn't say holiday on the page and you ask for holiday, you won't find that page if it only says vacation. Yeah, but if you use semantic search, yeah, like the vector numbers for like holiday, the words holiday and vacation are very similar. So like using vector search, you actually find similar content. Yeah, so that's why we use here a semantic search. Yeah, so it's standard. You can just do this. And we do here exactly the same as you saw with the example before. So before we just, here you see the processor here, like that's the regular Search API pre-processing task where we just convert the rendered output from the page as Markdown. And from this, we just generate like the embeddings and store them into the vector database. You see here, like regular Search API, you see the fields that we're indexing. So we're indexing the rendered content as embeddings. You see that there. And the URL of the page, because we need that to just generate the link on the bottom of the page. And then the title, we use the title actually twice, once to generate the link and other time to like show it on the page. So therefore it's indexed twice. Yeah. So, and the instructions we just give here is also very similar. So there's no magic in prompt engineering, anything like this. The difference is only that, that the content will be provided in various user messages. And if there's multiple content provided, it will be separated by multiple quotes. That's what you see here. And then we say, you saw always the link in the bottom, we say like create links from the H1 in the document source in the following format. So it's easy for large language models to understand how to generate a link, even though it's marked down what he returns, yeah, if its format is specified as HTML in this case. Probably you could also do this differently, yeah, so I mean, the models are very powerful, but that just worked pretty nicely, and we had seen this in other examples, and again, the message being sent back is formatted as Markdown. So another thing we did, so it's quite difficult if you build a dynamic application, it's quite difficult to get it right. Yeah, because it's dynamic. So you have to look like what goes in, like what's being indexed, what comes out, what are the questions you answer, and so forth. And so we're using a plugin for converting HTML to Markdown. Yeah, and in order to just being able to check, like what does that content look like in Markdown, we created a small module that allows us to preview content in different view modes in Markdown. Yeah, for example, you see here on the bottom in Markdown, the image is not formatted correctly. In this case, it doesn't matter because like we're not sending back images. But if you want to send back images, so then this wouldn't be correct. Yeah. So that's something like we created. And if you build dynamic applications, you will need something like this to see like what does the content look like that you are actually using in a dynamic way. And now let's look at how is this RAG application configured. So this is exactly the same screen you saw before. You see, we're again using OpenAI. So the provider configuration is again 4.0 mini. Like I just collapsed it now because didn't want to show it again. And now you see like the source is not static text anymore. It's a response from the Search API vector index. Yeah. And here in this case, so the content vector was the index we defined before in the vector database. Yeah. And you want to return exactly 5 results. Yeah. So you can distinguish the number of sources and the number of results. There's 2 settings for this, so you can make this different if you wanted to. And you see here on the bottom the vector minimum score. So like we use a very low similarity to get the results. Yeah, so we started out, for example, with like having a minimum score of 0.5 that gave us too few search results, because if you just don't ask a very specific question that you have good content for, you don't get the right answers. And you maybe saw in the examples before, I think it was some question, I don't know which question it was, but where he showed like 4 or 5 sources. Yeah, because we needed to make sure the right page that has the relevant content is part of the sources. Yeah, so therefore we needed to bring that score a bit down. And correctly, he said, this is the answer that I found for you, which was a very specific, nicely formatted answer, but based on 5 sources, out of which only 1 was relevant. Yeah, so like it's actually, you have to play around with these settings. Like the content has to be good that goes in. Yeah, and you just have to have the right amount of sources that you just get back, and you have to have the right score so that you actually, based on the questions the audience asks in your application, that you get the right results. And then you see here, that's like the cost changer. Yeah, we had there 24,000 tokens, and now we can just, it's enough to just have 4,000 tokens. Yeah, 4,000 tokens, that's just perfectly fine for like returning some data, asking some question, having some responses, and sending that back and forth in a conversation. So now, what happens if you have more than 10 messages? We crop them off. If you have more than 4,096 tokens, we crop the rest off in a smart way. Yeah, and for this, you just need logging. Otherwise, you have no clue what's going on. Otherwise, you just get answers, and you just don't know why you even got that answer. So if you take this here, so you see the log messages here on the bottom, it just says like blah, blah, blah messages were removed because they exceeded the number of messages, which was 10 we saw earlier. And then you see that some messages are too long, and then like the messages were cropped. Yeah, just we take like of the large messages, we take stuff off the end. I don't know if that's a good strategy. Like so far it looked good. You could also crop elsewhere, or you could try to shorten the text that you index. I don't know, there's many things you could do. And then what you definitely want, you need to have proper logging, like the data that you're sending to your model and the answer you're getting back, right? Otherwise, there's no way that you're going to find out. Like, so what you saw here, this nice internet application, I mean, this is pretty hard to build because like it's not technically hard, so to speak, but it's like getting it right, getting the data right, getting the configuration right, and making it do exactly this is actually a lot of work. All right, so the modules we used. So we're building this, what you just saw is like, you know, AI module family, AI search, Milvo search provider, and OpenAI. We did not use AI assistant API and AI chatbot. And the reason is not because there's anything wrong with them, it's just because we are developing this at the same time than the AI team is. And we just need this flexibility at the moment because, you know, to like all this logging and all these extra settings and all these ways of how we just like, you know, configure some stuff, we are going to contribute and we collaborate with them, and we're going to contribute everything we can. But at the moment, it's being developed at the same time. Yeah. So therefore, we have like these custom modules. We prefix ours with XI. That's how we do it. So we also have an AI and AI search module. And then you have this HTML markdown generation. So really, if you think about it, it's not so much that you just need to invent in order to get something like this this going, but like it's in the detail where the problems arise. Okay, what about fine tuning? Yeah, so maybe some of you have already heard like about what fine tuning is. So I just didn't want to spare that. So let's quickly look at what that does. So you can fine tune a large language model, and it works like this: that the foundation of the model is frozen or kept stable, and then you create a data set that is specific to whatever task you want to achieve, and you train on top of the model, and then this information goes into the model. That's what fine tuning is. And where you have use cases, it's useful when you do repetitive stuff. So for example, you have like customer support, and the support always asks the same question. Yeah, so then you don't need to dynamically find it, and it's never changing, and you don't need a dynamic mechanism because you're constantly adding stuff to it. So then you can actually fine tune this into the model itself. Then you don't need to pass any data along, and then it takes it directly from the model. Yeah, so like customer support is an example, or special text like legal medical text. There, this makes total sense. Or like good example, it's also like if you want to have a certain tonality. Yeah, like it kind of should be, I don't know, like however you want this to sound, the responses. So you could put these into the model instead of having to pass this along with every single message saying like, look, make your response sound like this. Yeah. And and of course also if you have very large data sets, yeah, so then you could large data sets that don't change a lot, then you could also like weave these into the model. And you would do this because it saves you tokens, right? Because you don't need to send this data along anymore because it's already in the model, and you have lower latency because, as we saw earlier, like little data in, faster to get a response than large data in, and you get higher results. Like higher quality of results, and and you can actually put more stuff in than you can with a prompt, because like the models are restricted by the amount of data they can actually receive in order to generate an answer. So like if you have more than that, this would also be your choice. Okay, now to the last part, creating useful applications. I saw this on an AI conference, and I think this one's nice. It's a bit nerdy and it's actually really simple, but it's a good way to think about it. Like if you are now like within your own organization, or you are like at a client or something like this, you're looking for stuff that you can, where AI can do something, yeah? So you just want to look at workflows, really. And then you just want to look at workflows, you want to find the ones what AI can do. So AI can translate, AI can summarize, AI can do da 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 da. So these are the first obvious ones that you want to find, yeah? Then if AI can simplify it, maybe summarization is actually not a complete task in itself, maybe it's more a simplification of like a larger workflow task, yeah? Then should also do it, yeah? And otherwise it's not ready for it. And and if you apply this, what we have been doing now lately is just do ideation workshops with clients. So you see here, like there's actually a real photo from such a workshop. We were like at a client's place, and there were 65 people participating. And we just put them into groups of 5, made sure that the groups were nicely mixed. So like a little bit developer, designer, business person, and so forth, yeah, so that they were all mixed. And then we just really gave them exactly what you saw here in the first example. We gave them like an AI assistant where they could write their own instructions and put their own data in. And then we told them go wild, yeah. And that was amazing. Like, so they just did that and they didn't want to stop. And we had to like call out for time and stuff like this. And some of the things they came up with, I want to share with you. And here's one that was actually really nice because like for this particular client, there's actually many developers involved and also many stakeholders because like it's a big company and like different departments and daughter companies and so forth. And everything is in Azure, everything is with issue boards and issues and epics and releases and sprints and teams and whatnot, yeah? And it's so easy, all you have to do is go into Azure and then go to the correct board and then you can get the information firsthand and nobody wants to do that. Yeah, but if you just download all the stuff, stick it into a model, you can just ask these questions that stakeholders, especially higher levels, always have. So who's working on this? When is this finished? Has this been started? What's the focus of the current sprint? Like all this information it's not graspable, even though when you have the correct login and you know how to use a board. So that's actually that was a real good one. So I'm actually in this project, I'm personally involved, and this is like a lot of work to like send the right information about development progress out to all the stakeholders, just a major thing. And that was actually a really, really good outcome. Here's another one. So for the space reason, I'll put here the barcode below because I wrote a blog post about it if you want to read more about this specific workshop, so you can follow this link here. And another group actually created a job agent, yeah, because they publish on all job portals, industry-specific portals, like their own portals on their own websites, and then like on the general portals and stuff. So they just copied it all together, like put this all in, didn't even do anything, like took the HTML, stuck it into the data input, and then you suddenly could ask questions. I want to work there. Is there a job for me? I want to work part-time. What jobs for part-time are available? Yeah, so and you could actually get real answers, and it's a real good benefit, like if you just actually want to find a job. And here the last one I want to share. So my personal favorite, what they came up with, somebody built a handover assistant. I mean, that's the most obvious thing ever if you think about it. Like, key person goes on vacation, they write this huge document and write in, if the client calls, then say this. Don't talk to this one because that in this week we want to finish that. And if that happens, you need to say this. Yeah, like, and really, you don't want to read it. You have your own stuff to do. Yeah, but like put that in and you can ask a question. Client called, can't see the customer individual prices. What should I do? Super easy. Just go here, like click this button and tell the person to log in with a different account or do whatever. Yeah, so that was actually quite nice. This was it. Thank you for listening to me.
Hi, J.R. Maroney. We're a simple information agency out of Washington, D.C. First, I want to say thanks for the slides. They are awesome. Great job on the slides.
Thank you.
You mentioned cost, and I was wondering if you had some ideas. The cost is mostly the GPU time. I was wondering if you had different ideas, like how to reduce that cost.
Yes. So that's one of the biggest things. So the cost I saw here were the costs from OpenAI, because the models used were from OpenAI, and you can just look up the cost from their website. So it's API. Internally, I don't know how they do it, but they just like how they price us and you if you use them. Yeah, it's just by tokens in, tokens out. If you want to reduce that, it's like reduce the tokens. Yeah. Or maybe if you use simple tasks, like some RAG tasks, for example, you can also consider hosting your own models, or maybe hosting models elsewhere or sharing models with other people. The requirements are not high. If you don't need like complex problem resolution or something like that, small models are probably fine. Yeah, so I think that's where you would look, and that's where we are looking.
Hi again, great work. So I was wondering, have you tried to limit what it said on the answers, what it says? For example, it cannot say something for legal reasons.
For legal reasons?
Yes, or certain words or certain phrases.
It's a good question. So there's actually, it's a good one also for everyone here to know. So like the prompts you send to AIs should be moderated before. Yeah, so it can happen if you just make a chat application and you send like racist stuff to OpenAI, they will just ban you for life. Yeah, so don't do it. Yeah, so and therefore like all these AI models and providers, they have like moderation layers between, and it passes through moderation. And if the question you ask is just not good, it won't even let it through. Yeah, so that's inbuilt in the AI module family. So if you use what Drupal has, you're safe. Yeah, but and you would have to actively like change the code if you just wanted to have unmoderated content sent to large language models. So you were referring to the answer, and so it depends on the model you use. I mean, the answer depends on the text that's being used for generation. So if the text that's being generated does not contain stuff, if the what it was trained on contains stuff that you just don't want to hear, like it could answer that.
Like, for example, it will make you $1 fit in one day, something like that. That it doesn't contain any vulgar language, just things that are not true, and that you cannot return that for legal reasons.
I mean, so now so first point is like it returns what it has. If it's trained on stuff that is just from your perspective not true, it will answer stuff that's from your perspective not true. Yeah, from the perspective of the model, it's just data in, data out. It's not thinking, it's just like predicting text. Yeah, so what you're actually referring to is like how to test applications if they are just doing a good job for the use case that you have in mind. Yeah, and that's a difficult task. So there needs to be, usually there's human in the loop that you actually check, like, is the answers that I'm getting, are these answers any good? I mean, there's also automatic testing methods. So you can, for example, for text summarization, you can take a good summary, that where a human has said that's a good summary, and then you could generate a summary and then compare how similar it is. There's these type of scores that you can do. But like for what you're referring to, is this true or false? Is this good or not? Is it offensive or not? Actually, that would be human in the middle that needs to actually validate. And I'm not sure like how you do this automatic. Oh, lots of questions now.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. It's actually related with what she was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever considered doing a post-processing? So you process the prompt, what you're going to send to the API, but what you receive, to put like a no-go sentence, like a band from your side.
To be honest, no. But like I have not seen it. So I have not experienced that, on the intranet, he's not. I mean, what you sometimes see is like you don't want the model to hallucinate. Hallucinate means it just because it just makes text, and you saw this temperature setting on the model. That's actually the randomness of the response. Yeah. So and if there's too much randomness, it's at some point it says stuff that's just like, boop, boop. Yeah, and and you can say like don't use other sources of information. You saw that in the prompt, and you can return reduce the randomness, and that gives you more stable responses. So that we've done, but I've not really seen that it just does really unwanted stuff. So therefore, I've not really thought about it.
Thank you.
Hey, Christoph, great presentation.
Thank you.
So I wanted to find out a little bit more about the training in your model. So you use the example of the internet. So I'll give you an example. We've all used ChatGPT or Gemini or Llama and other
Yep.
tools, and we've put information in, we've asked questions, and we found that the information spat back at us maybe 60% of it is accurate, the other 40% is inaccurate. But we can't do a lot about that. Like if you do a search for your own name, you'll find some really interesting things that come
Yes.
up. So with your intranet, do the users have the ability to be, let's say 2 policies in your handbook got combined and it gave wrong information.
Yep.
Do the users have a way to flag you to say, you as the owner of the content or your HR team could correct and fix that in the tool by training it to give better information back based off that question in the future?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and we're actually actively thinking about this. Let me just maybe change a bit of the wording what you said. So we're not training anything. Yeah, we use a pre-trained model, and we're not changing this at all. We're just passing data to it and saying, answer only based on this data. So now, correctly, as you say, like if 2 things get combined or he gets mixed up because like the score for the vector similarity is so low that something comes in and he gets confused. Yeah, so that would be something that you would need to fix with the settings. And we're actually currently looking into to make something. So firstly, we're building up logging. Like logging is really difficult. Like how are we going to log this? Yeah, I mean, we're thinking about like sticking all question responses into BigQuery or something like this so that you could actually start digging if you wanted to. And we are thinking about like making thumbs up, thumbs down functionality where you can say this was good, this was not good. I think ChatGPT does this too. And so to at least see the ones that are just not good enough. Yeah, and then, but we haven't really gotten much further there. Yeah, it says like below, it says like if you see something you don't like, please create an issue. That's as far as we've gotten. So.
Hi. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was great.
thank you.
Also, I was late.
Oh,
I
no
missed
problem.
the first part. Maybe you answered my question
No worries.
before. It's about Playground because mostly we use Playground from OpenAI and create our model just for cost, for Symfony. We haven't used AI in any of our Drupal projects.
Yeah.
Yes. And create assistant and everything there. Then I create API key. Is there any possibility in your work or Drupal at the moment, as far as you know, that I can use same sort of routine that we can create a structure in Playground and use the API key that OpenAI give us?
I'm actually not sure if the modules available in Drupal.org also allow you to connect to Playground API functionality. So I'm not sure. For us, it's not so relevant because we, of course, want to build the applications in the software we build for our clients and not in ChatGPT. And also, like, if you talk cost, yeah, I mean, there's also some margin that we would like to make and not only, OpenAI. So, like, therefore, like, we're not seeking to integrate too deeply. Yeah, but we're more looking at, like, how can we do this cost efficient with Drupal only and self-hosted things.
Okay. For us, it was just cost because the assistant inside Playground, it almost cost nothing in terms of storage, and we had so much JSON pure information. Each communication could cost us a lot. That's the main thing.
Yes.
If you have any shortcut for that, obviously it will be great.
API in general is much less expensive, of course. Yeah.
Thank you.
And also maybe for that, I mean, there's not only OpenAI, there's very many providers, and we want to actually be agnostic. Yeah, for legal requirements, then also for self-hosted versus like cloud-based and so forth. Yeah, so there's lots of things to consider. So we want to be like on a very high abstraction level, from our perspective at least.
Hi, Christoph.
Hi.
Thank you for the presentation. Did you ever play with or consider playing with looking at authenticated users and giving responses based on their user roles, like different responses, and or acting based on their user account on a website? Let's say I want to reset my password and the AI will say what here's your new password or whatever.
Yeah. It's a good question. I mean, if you think about it, it's just additional data. Yeah, so a request comes and you just load data from somewhere. It might as well be from the user account. So we haven't looked into the example that you have specifically, but for example, what's really obvious is to have like a support bot that answers questions about your orders. Yeah, if you have orders, so like, what's the status? When am I getting my stuff? Yeah, and then it can say like, this one, your order was split, and this one's here, and this one's shipping, and it could just really summarize all the stuff that you would like have on a scattered order page, and you could just make that available directly to the user by just loading their past orders or something. Actually, product recommendations would be a similar thing, you know, like if you think about repeat buying type of product recommendations, like stuff that you have bought regularly, you know, like milk is now gone, and, you know, you could see like, he always buys milk, so why don't you buy milk now? So that would be typical tasks that are user-related that you could load.
Thank you. And another question is, did you play with local LLMs
Yes.
rather than OpenAI?
Yes. At the moment, we are just at this point of looking because we want to self-host. Yeah, and we are at the moment looking like how to best do this. Like here for this, it was not enough time until DrupalCon now to like show this off. Yeah, but like that's what we're actually looking at to see if we can like have some efficiency benefits.
Thank you.